Welcome to Pods with Posh and Paul, a podcast designed to inspire and challenge listeners through story, experience and insight. To face adversity, learn from suffering and discover how to embrace life with a heart filled with love and gratitude. We are so thrilled to have you journey with us and can't wait to share your stories. Join Sue O'Callaghan and Joanne Webb as we disrupt the theory that everyone has perfect lives. The following feedback is some of the extraordinary comments left for our next special guests. Incredible voices, gave us goosebumps. Their voices together are magical. Such awesome chemistry. A pleasure to listen to and watch. Today we welcome onto our podcast a unique and highly talented husband and wife duo who met while studying for a Bachelor of Music at Auckland University in New Zealand. There they discovered they both shared a passion for the power of language and music to tell stories, create community, and remind us of our cultural identity. Together they formed Arrow Music, which blends her honey-voiced jazz with his full-throated percussive sound with shades of haka. Arrow's storytelling performance adds up to a warmth of experience, wholly original and anchored in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It leaves all who are present with a feeling of having been let in on a special secret. With a heart for individuals finding their identity through story and music, we are thrilled to welcome Emily and Charles Looker.
Hi Emily and Charles, thanks for coming on board. How are you today?
Hi guys, thanks for having us. Yeah, good.
Right, let's go straight in to talk about your album that you've just released. So Manu, which means bird in Maori, is that correct?
Yeah.
So it's very, very beautiful. Sue bought the CD and didn't have a CD player, so I've been playing it in my car because I'm lucky enough to have a CD player still. So it's so beautiful. So could you just go back and tell us where the inspiration came from the album, how it came about?
Yeah, sure. So Manu is bird in Māori, and all of the songs on the album are inspired by a different native bird. Charles, you want to tell them how we came up with the idea?
Yeah, it's not so much an original idea, more a traditional idea, just brought to life in modern day, I suppose. We were talking with our pastor, and he's been working on his Masters of Music, and it was compulsory for them to take a Māori music paper. And in there, he found out that traditionally our ancestors would, my ancestors, I suppose, Māori ancestors, would compose waiata songs based on what they heard in the environment. And so I just took that straight away. I was like, that could be a cool project. Bird seems like a pretty good place to start. Mm-hmm. They've got melodies, and I know in my own upbringing in Kurakaupapa Māori schools, that I know that there's a lot of stories and a lot of proverbs that go with some of our native birds. And so already there's a foundation of melody and harmony, and then there's also a foundation for like the context from the narrative of the song too. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of took it. The tricky thing was making it like personable. It's like, okay, cool, that's a bird. How do we relate to it? How can we as human beings relate to a bird so that the bird seems like it's relating to human beings? Yeah. And then Manu was born.
Yeah, and so we travelled around the country 2017, last year. No.
2 years
ago, wow. No, it was last year. We moved into our van in December 2017, and then we last year spent the year travelling around the country. And we decided, rather than trying to choose which birds we're going to feature on the album, we'd just wait until we heard a specific bird, and then try and figure out what it was.
Yeah, well, a bird we enjoyed the song of anyway.
Yeah.
Not them annoying ones that wake you up in the morning.
Yeah, not those ones.
Yeah.
So Charles and Emily, for our listeners that don't know the native birds, the New Zealand native birds are quite unique, aren't they? Can you tell us some of the names of those birds so that our listeners will understand?
Yeah. In the order, I suppose, of the album, we have the Korimako. So originally, Em and I are from Auckland, and it took us going all the way down to Akaroa in Christchurch before we heard the song of the bellbird. Mm. They are here on the North Island, but we just didn't hear them until then.
Yeah, we've got Te Whare Wānanga, which is our fantail, which has a lot of other Māori names as well, depending on where people come from. So the Pi Waka Waka is what we what
Well,
some
a
people
lot of people
well, a lot of
refer
people
to it,
refer to.
eh?
Yeah.
But up north with Te Rairaka, Te Rakaraka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our fantail, and then we've got Kereru, or what was the kuku?
Kukupa.
Kukupa is actually the way that you'd say that in Auckland, but we most people know it as the Kereru, which is our big wood pigeon. Kaka, Rido, and Miro are two.
Two are nice, beautiful, small birds. The
Yeah,
Rido
really
is the
sweet.
grey warbler. It's quite significant too. It was the traditional teller of the seasons.
Oh.
So it would only sing when the seasons would change. And that would mean that, oh, cool, spring is here, let's get to work, sort of thing. Winter is over, spring is coming.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's just nice listening to you pronounce all the words properly, because Sue and I have been reading them going, we really wish we could speak this language. It sounds so beautiful, and we're just trying to sound them out, and we're like, we just sound like idiots.
I want to know more, because I went over quite recently to Te Matangi, where they've created a wildlife sanctuary, haven't they? It was bush that was cleared for farmland, and now they're restoring it, and you can go on a guided tour and hear about the birds, and I just think the birds are just extraordinary. So keep going, I want to know more.
Is in more of the names of them?
Yes, and the characteristics.
Yeah, well, the Pi Waiwaka, actually, we should just jump back to that one quickly, because that one's quite,
There's
a lot of
symbolism,
stories
attached to it.
Yeah, so one of the most common ones we heard was the fact that, like, if a Pi Waiwaka comes into your house and comes in and goes out another door, is it?
Yeah, it goes through your house.
If it goes through your house, it represents that someone might have passed away that you know, which is crazy, because it's like, that, you know, I love that kind of, that they can tell us things, you know, like, you always notice it with animals, that they, I don't know, there's other things that they're aware of, I think.
Yeah, right.
We as humans maybe don't, I don't know, just the way that they are. But,
but that's attached to, like, it's not just that bird looks like it's bringing a bad message.
No.
There's another story that goes with it that has to do with Maui. When Maui tried to give man immortality, and he entered through trying to get to the womb of Hinenui Te Po, which is our maiden of death, the one who porphyries people when they pass away into the underworld. And then Pi Waiwaka thought it was really hilarious that he, by the way in which he tried to enter, and cracked up and woke her up, and she crushed him.
Oh,
and
wow.
that of Maui, so from the place he came, that's where he returned. And
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's why Pi Waiwaka has that
tricky bit. But also, like, we had one really beautiful story. So as part of our tour, we also did a bunch of school workshops around the country, and one down in Pairoa, where LMP is from, the soft drink. But we had a lady tell us a story about how she had, well, because people across, people listen to this all over the place, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So anyway, this lady came in with one of her sons, and she was telling us a story about how she had two fantails hopping into her house each day, and then they'd leave again, and they always seemed quite joyful. She said when they came in, and then at the end of a couple of weeks of this kind of same routine happening with them, she discovered that she was pregnant.
Wow.
And so she reckons it was actually the birds telling her that there's good news coming. So
Oh.
it doesn't have to always represent death.
Some people say they're coming to let you know somebody's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that, because I've just recently done an ultra marathon, and on 2 of my training runs and the day I did the ultra marathon, the one bird that was with me was a fantail. And I was really struggling at times, and then this little fantail would just literally pop in front of me and do like this little jig and twirl around, and it was so pretty, and like literally just lifted my spirits so high, because you can get to quite dark places. And I just really felt, that's somebody giving me a message on every time. I just felt it was a message from somebody. It was so beautiful.
And there's so many stories like that, like when we were down on Rakiura, Stewart Island, we walked in a forest, and they're always the ones who kind of will lead you through the forest as well.
Yeah.
But it's the Pi Waiwaka who knows its way.
Yes.
If you get stuck in a forest, apparently if you lose your way off the path or whatever, the fantail apparently only goes from its nest to the outside of the forest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't fly everywhere. It just goes to the edge of the forest and back. So if you get follow the fantail.
Yeah.
Cute.
Which is what the whole Pi Waiwaka song's about.
Yeah.
Following the right voice. Yeah, stay on the right path.
some of your lyrics in the song, well, all of the lyrics are really, really beautiful as well. So, you know, when you read, and I like the way that you've got some of the lyrics on the cover of your CD, because, you know, it feels like really old school, doesn't it? It's really cool. I
always
that.
love that when I bought CDs.
Yeah.
You know, being able to like open it up and actually read along with the lyrics, because I always just, I used to sing all sorts of different words that were not actually the words. I would make up words to go along with songs because I thought that's what they were saying. So I've always appreciated being able to read along with it.
And I imagine also if you were in a van travelling around, you were in a camper van, weren't you? Living out of your camper van for how long was it? 12 months?
Yeah, you could follow it. And it was a Toyota Hiace that has become a little self-contained van. Yeah. We were in it we've just recently moved into this place that we're in now, which is our house in Pukekohe, Auckland. And before that, we've been in the van for about probably a year and a half all up. But in that time, you know, we weren't fully in the van every night or anything. It was like hopping from family's house around the country or staying with family in Auckland and in the van, obviously, as well. Freedom camping, but also staying at campgrounds and stuff. So.
And I was going to say, what a lovely inspiration to follow the birds and look at their different characteristics, because I imagine every different place that you went, you were seeing different birds, weren't you? I mean, I imagine there's very different birds on South Island and North Island in New Zealand.
Even some of the birds that you'll see both in the South and the North Island have different kind of calls, melodies and calls, depending on where you are, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
We were up north, like, beginning of this year. And because the grey warbler melody, the rido melody we used was one from the east coast, from Ngāti Porou ways. Earlier this year we were up north and we heard what sounded like a rido, but the melody was like completely different.
Yeah, it's quite a distinct sounding bird, but yeah, it was. We've gotten so used to that the melody that we ended up using in our song. It's like, oh wow. I do have more than just one.
So when you were in the camper van, you were travelling around all of New Zealand, which must have been quite idyllic, was it? When you were, because we've got a beautiful country, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, like I'm as a descendant of people of the Northland and the North Island, I found it really hard to call other places just as beautiful, just because of that.
Slightly biased.
You know, pride in my own, in my own heritage. But there's a different kind of beauty in the South Island. Mm-hmm. Like there's a wilderness there that's not like, you know, comparable to anywhere else really. Not even in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm yet to wait to make it to the Ureweras around Waikare Moana. But I know the South Island. Yeah, there's a different beauty about it, especially Stewart Island.
Oh yeah, we love it. We're trying to go there every time we do a gig around or tour around the country. We're trying to always make sure we go there.
And your tours were to encompass education as well, going into schools, playing music to children. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so
it was interesting.
Yeah, it was cool. So Charles has got a background now in teaching. So he did a program in Auckland called Ako Mata Tupu, which is also Teach First New Zealand. And he trained to become a teacher after he finished his music degree and then taught in a school as a Te Reo Māori teacher. But we're really excited or passionate, I guess, about our young people knowing who they are. And one of the ways we wanted to connect with young people was just going into the schools and doing music workshops and stuff with them.
Yeah, it put hands and feet, basically. I was struggling because we had written this music that inspired from a concern around identity, I suppose. And so, but we were just, for me anyway, we were performing music to people who could pay to see us. And sometimes some of the messages we wanted to send weren't really to some of those people. Mm-hmm. And so we're just like, after that first tour, just like, how the heck do we, put hands and feet to what we actually really want to be saying?
Yeah.
And so going into schools was one of them. It was like, let's just give it a go. And we started with, because we'd never done it before, so we thought it'd be best if we contacted schools we were already familiar with or we had family members in.
Yep. So
that, we could get a bit of support or even a critical feedback from some of the teachers there. Yeah, it worked out really well. We spent a whole day in Invercargill in a Kurakaupapa Māori school down there. But the reason for being there was that one of my friend's mothers took us in when our van broke down, and we stayed at her house for like 4 days, I think. And so I said, you can, like, next time we're here, we'll come and just do something for your school.
Yeah.
And so
I love the fact you're in schools. I absolutely love it. I mean, I speak for Jo as well because we both go into schools. I'm a trained teacher as well, spent 15 years teaching. And I just think, well, both of us, our heart is actually teenage mental health. And I know you both as well have a heart for mental health. We've got high teen suicide rate here in New Zealand. And I think identity is so important, isn't it? How do we find our identity when, especially teenagers and young children, are so influenced by social media? How do we find our own voice within it? And your voice is so powerful, isn't it? So to be able to go into school and to say to children that you can find your own journey, your own path, you can find your own song, is such a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, we've been encouraged at least to try. Who was I talking with? I was talking with one of the Museum Music Commission people, actually, Mike. And because I've been wanting to compose a educational book out of it, kind of like the concept was a bird is hatched and he doesn't know what kind of bird it is, so he goes around visiting all the birds on the album, asking them, if he's like them, and then they give their story. And hopefully at the end, it's going to be a blank bird. At the end, you're meant to add like a feather to the bird, so at the end you kind of have an idea of what kind of bird you are, and those feathers could be like little values or qualities or things that and so something like that, and it's still in seed form, but it definitely needs to happen because I can't get rid of it. So.
Okay, well now it's in seed form and now it's going to go out there on a podcast. You've got to do it first before some other bugger steals your idea. Okay, so you do it quick. Let's patent that idea.
Actually, I've already started.
I love
it. Get one more Beta had the Manu album, so we had the best one.
So you two, you met at university, didn't you? Both studying in Auckland at university. Yeah. And how did you decide to go down this path? Because I'm also interested in teenagers, whether they leave school and go straight into a job or work or go to university, do they follow a set career path like law or medicine, which takes them straight into that job? But you've done something that's quite different and quite unique. You've gone on your own path, you've got together, you're playing your beautiful music, you're educating, you're inspiring people. What adversity did you find came your way? Did you find there was conflict? Did you find there was struggle to do that, in terms of obviously got to earn money to survive, and that's a big thing, isn't it? How do we earn money but yet still stay passionate about what we're doing?
Totally.
I can speak about my own experience. So previous to wanting to even engage with university, I wasn't familiar with like anybody who had gone there. And so my motivation for being there was just to prove that we could do it. I grew up in Otara and, South Auckland, pretty much, born and raised. And there were a lot of stereotypes that I didn't become familiar with until I stepped outside of South Auckland. I was like, oh, shucks, there's a lot of voices and messages here telling us that we're something that is not at all what the reality is.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the push to send me into study. So I guess my adversity, is I don't know. I almost saw it as like a challenge, like oh cool. This so this.
Well, stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something completely different.
There were different, like the difference is that because I grew up mainly in a Māori kind of medium context where everything was interdependent. Everybody had a place in the family. So it was when at university it was completely independent, and I try to ask for like some things and they were just like, no, that's not how it happens at university. You just do it yourself. I was just like, whoa, shucks, this is a complete culture change. What the heck? Yeah, but it was good. Like those things were good. It gave me some skills.
I got hooked on just music. Was like all I wanted to do when I went through high school, and then when I went to the open days to try to see what, I was like either going to be a nurse or a teacher or or a musician. That was like, well, actually, musician wasn't. It was just I went to the open day and then I was like, no, that's all I want to do. So I did the course, and then afterwards I was kind of like, I wanted to go live overseas for a bit, just to, I always kind of thought that would be a good challenge or just a cool time to experience what life's like overseas. And so I went to Berlin for a year, and when I came back, I was kind of like, okay, how do I, when Charles and I had kind of, because when I came back, we pretty much got married, and then after he finished his teaching thing, we were kind of like, let's just throw ourselves right into music because we just need to do it. And then going into the band was part of that because it meant that we no longer had to worry about paying rent. and instead we were just,
worried about having a shower.
But it just made sense because we were like, we wanted to go around the country because our heart is definitely for Aotearoa, and especially young people and with mental health and that as well. I think that was kind of part of why we wanted to really go and like be around the whole country and to just really get to know communities all over. So yeah, that was.
There's a few things bubbling up at me. There's one key moment in my life before I went to go study. I was actually preparing to move over to Australia to help with like a church planting, and I was real young. I just thought it was the right thing to do. But in the middle of a meeting, God spoke to me and said, "You should study at Mains." I was like, "Wow!" It was a clear voice. It was very clear, and I didn't even know who Mains was. Went to look it up, and it's this it's a Polytech music course. And that kind of kicked me off. And I was put on a waiting list, and the course was going to start in 3 weeks. And that was the complete time for my resignation too. So I just resigned, just was like in faith, believing that that voice was clear enough. I resigned, and right up, not kidding, right up to the 3rd week, because I was like, crap, this is the last week of work and I haven't got a call yet. 2 days before the course started, I get a call being like, "Hey, a position's just opened up. Would you like it?" I was like, "Yeah." And so I started that very next week, and I haven't since then. I've done my best to just give as much airtime to that voice as possible. And so this whole movement towards living in a van and just dropping everything and going 100%, because that's not familiar to me. Being self-employed was like, I'm as far as my experiences and my upbringing goes, you become employed so you can earn money so you can pay for rent and pay for the groceries and stuff. So meeting Emily in itself was like quite.
I think my time in Berlin really inspired me to just go for it, because I had so many friends that I met over there who were just like dreamers, and rather than just being dreamers who dream and just kind of let them be dreams, they'd actually go and do them all, what they were dreaming. And Berlin was a great place to be in terms of there weren't as many financial pressures. I found like it was affordable to live and eat and be there, and so I had friends who were just starting things or just doing like little just random little initiatives and stuff. There was a farm to table group that I was working with for a little while.
Oh, young people too.
Oh, young
like
people,
in their 20s or something.
I was 23 and they were all about my age, maybe.
I love that there's so many messages there within both of your stories, you know what I mean? And basically, like, with you, Charles, you got a message, and that's down to your faith. But we all get messages, whether we've got faith in the same God or whoever as anybody. There's still messages there to be heard, isn't there? Whether it's your intuition, your gut, or however we get them. And often people don't listen to their messages, and then they're not kind of following their own path. And I think that's when they struggle in life, because they're not listening, they're not in tune, and they're not in flow. They're actually fighting against it. And then you, Emily, you actually seen people go for their goals, go for their dreams. And this, as you say, there's so many people out there who have got this dream and they don't start. And it's such a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, because like for all the people that I was talking about, like it was definitely challenging. Like that, it wasn't just like this like easy as breezy thing. They were like, yeah, I want to do this thing and just do it. Like there was a heck lot of work that went into it. And actually never like seeing people doing something like that, which they like had the idea of and then just went for it kind of thing. But they really had to throw themselves into it. They had to invest in it. They had to spend their entire days and sometimes all their nights just trying to get it started and up and going kind of thing. But it was worth it in the end,
And the message you both speak about is courage, stepping into the unknown. And Charles, you talk about faith. How do we actually make that choice to step into faith? Because we either partner with fear or faith, don't we? And it actually takes a lot of courage to say, I feel this is my calling. I feel this is what I'm being told, or it's what I'm hearing inside, and I'm actually going to go with that. And even though I don't know the security of what lies ahead, i.e. I don't know where the money's going to come from, I'm actually going to step into, all I know is that voice inside me is calling me to do it, and I'm not going to partner with fear. What if the money doesn't come in? What if I don't make it? I'm actually going to step into that unknown territory through courage. And I love the courage that you both speak of to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, if I'm being honest, though, if I was not married to Emily, I would not have jumped in the van. She's very good at thinking of something and doing it.
Well, I had the van dream since I was like in school. Like I used to draw little pictures of vans in my books, in the corners of all my books, because I was just like so excited about the idea of it.
But that's another message as well, though, because we do have childhood dreams, or we have likes that as a child, you know, we're really passionate about things, and then we can lose that as we get older, where society's telling us we should do this and should do that, but actually that childlike thing inside fills you with so much joy.
Totally, yeah.
And that's what we try to bring in our album. It's like this. I've been reading. I love my fantasy books, and just because of that, because it just was like wonderful. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I read something that George MacDonald, who apparently C.S. Lewis and Tolkien used to look up to, he's kind of like, they call him the grandfather of fantasy. But they interviewed him, and one of the questions was, how does it feel to be, you know, or how do you feel being a children's author? It's like, well, I don't really write for children. I write for the childlike. And yeah, and he hopes that those stories would excite the child out of everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's
And
why
it does. Totally does.
we've been around performing our show, sharing the stories attached to the songs, and it's just cool seeing, like, you know, young and old faces just kind of light up, just being like, whoa, shucks, it's like just painting this beautiful picture of all these colors that you didn't realize surrounded this single bird.
Yeah.
I love it. And you're being mentors for young people as well. You're going into schools, you're showing them, sharing stories with them, you're showing how your album came about, you're sharing your music, which is beautiful, and therefore you're a mentor for these young people, and that's such an important role to be, isn't it?
Yeah. It's it's interesting because after leaving, it's one of those fine lines, because after teaching in a school, you know, there are things in place to keep everybody safe. And so when we put the line out there, because I always say, it's like, you know, if you want to ask us any questions about what we do or anything, just flick us a message on Facebook. Like, we're happy to just talk with you on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then it comes to those, and thankfully we haven't had anything serious shared with us, but we have had quite a cool bunch of stories that have come out of, I suppose, being inspired by our shows. One of them was a woman up in Whangarei. So she had completely disassociated herself with her Māori side because of her father being so strict about learning it. To the point where, you know, it pretty much pushed her away rather than drew her in.
Yep.
And she had been like that. She was probably in her 30s, coming up to her 40s maybe. But after the show, she said, I didn't realize there was so much beauty in our culture. I really wanted to learn about who I am as a Māori. Because she said, I haven't gone back there in about 18 or 20 years now. Yeah. Things like that. Like, just one. The whole, like, I really don't care. Like, if we perform to 1 million or just one, as long as that person, whoever it is, as long as something we said made some kind of difference, I'm happy. That's success to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a powerful message, isn't it, to our listeners as well? What is your cultural heritage? Because we're talking about identity on here. Where are you from? That we're all trying to find ourselves in other people, in different societies, but actually, where do we come from? And to honour our own culture, to find our roots in it and find our own identity in it and be proud of it.
But also, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No, so I was going to say, I love what you just said then about success as well, because a lot of people, they say they want to be successful, yet they can't actually pinpoint what success is to them. Whereas you've just said it beautifully. If you can just inspire one person, then that's the success to you, and you're doing that. And so your life is successful, your life is enriched, you're like, you know, that's such a cool place to be.
Yeah, it is. I'm super content, but also, you know, still seeking, still anticipating, still pushing.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy. Like, the fact that we could come out of living in a van and purchase a house with a decent section is like ridiculous, right? Yeah.
It was pretty bizarre because
we definitely, because God took care of us. That's what we put it down. While we've been in the van and through people, I don't want to disregard that as well. I was talking with my sister-in-law, and she had said that. It's like, isn't it really cool that people? Because I was like, God's just really taking care of us. She's like, yep, and people have taken care of you too. It's like, yeah, actually, there's a good, they have.
It's honestly like the amount of like
love
and generosity we experienced from complete strangers. Like we met this amazing couple down in Dunedin on our first tour around the country like last year, and they said, oh, we've got this family like batch kind of thing in the middle of like by Lake Te Whare. If you guys need somewhere to stay while you're there, like we can let you know where the key is, or they like gave us a key or something like that. And that when we arrived, like Te Whare was when our engine of our van pretty much caked it. Like we had to get it was crazy, but we had this place to go back to, and just there was a fire and it was pretty cold. It was like getting to the middle of winter, and just to like have a place to stay. And we called them and said, hey, our van is just like, we had to get towed out of the Milford Sound today. They were like, just stay there for as long as you need, kind of thing. And it was just amazing, like, you know, that people can be that just generous.
But you know why? Because look at you two. You know, I can wait. Obviously, our listeners can't see your faces, but they can go and look on your website. But you two both radiate joy, love, and happiness, and you can see that coming out of both of you. And so we reap what we sow. You know, you go around giving. You're giving your message. You're giving love out, and you're just getting it back. And I just think that's how the world works.
And I know that you have a follow-up EP coming out, which features 5 more songs. Is that right? Inspired by birds as well?
That's right. So we've got a few, like over the next 10 years or so, we've got 4 more albums inspired by other natural
things.
Yeah, we've got
inspirations,
different parts of nature, different elements of, whether it's crawling parts of it or if it's like trees or the ocean or whatever. It's there's these different things that we would like to draw and pull stories from, like we've done with the Manu.
Again though, not an original
idea. It's the same as what Charles was saying earlier.
Yeah. Somebody we were sitting in the middle of a conference actually that we were just supporting her mum at, and a guy there spoke about 5 different signs that Māori look to for changes in the environment, and birds came up. So the rest, which you'll have to wait for.
We can't wait.
Yeah. Manu Anō is our EP that we're going to be. We've got one more song to finish on this little project, and then we've got our summer campground tour we do each year, and so we'll be able to share some of the songs there. And then next year in April, we've been given the opportunity to go on a tour right around the country again, supported by Arts on Tour, which is an amazing organisation in New Zealand who they get funding through some of our Creative New Zealand funding to be able to support artists to go around the country and share their different arts. And so there's comedy, there's theatre, there's dance, you know, and then there's music as well. So we're really excited about being part of that next year. And alongside Caitlin Smith, I should say.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
And another exciting announcement, you've just won, you've been nominated as finalists for an amazing award. Would you like to tell us about that?
It was really cool. We got to be one of the 5 finalists for the Maioha Award, which is Best Māori Composition. Waiata Māori. Yeah,
it was off our first album.
It was pretty amazing to be in the mix with some other really amazing Māori artists. So Angelique and her uncle.
Yeah, but what was the
song that won it was called Ka'au, and it was beautiful. But yeah, we got to sit on the table with all of these other finalists and be at the Silver Scrolls for the first time, which is New Zealand's probably most prestigious music awards, which is a real honour, really.
And I didn't realise this until we had gone to like a few meetings with other musicians, because it's basically their award show. The Silver Scrolls are like songs picked by artists and other people in the music industry, rather than a public
popularity
popularity kind of contest. It's more about the art of it, which has been I'm sure it all contributes because people like what's good too. So
for sure. But yeah, it was just really, really cool to be.
And that's so exciting for you guys, because on our journey, on our path, it's really important also to get recognised in what we do, isn't it? And to be encouraged to, sometimes we face struggle, or we think, are we doing the right thing? Or we have dark days and we think, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing and it's not actually what I thought it was going to be. But to be inspired like that is just to recognize that, just keep going, because you do get days where you suddenly get that recognition. You think, actually, what I'm doing is right. I'm on my right path. There are days that are good. There are days that are bad. But then when we get recognition, you think, gosh, yes, it's okay. What I'm doing is all right. So I'm sure that really inspired you, didn't it, to keep going?
Yeah, and a really good example of when we had the struggle was that time that I was just talking about with the van down on the South Island. We pretty much, like, it was going to cost us about $4,000 to fix our van. Yeah,
it was going to cost $7,000.
Initially $7,000.
It was going to cost the price that we bought the van for.
Oh my gosh! Probably the biggest act of generosity. I just remembered our dear friend Joel down in Invercargill. He was towing us to get we were just going to be buying another van because we needed to get back to Auckland at this point. We needed to be home for some family things that were going on. But but Joel, he was just like, you know what? You guys are going to get ripped off if you go there. Come with me to Invercargill and I'll help you guys fix your van. You can't just get rid of your van. It's amazing, like, because it had all of, it had all the character and
basically he towed our van with the same van.
Yeah, it was amazing.
All the way back to Invercargill from Milford.
Amazing.
This is what you're selling. You're selling this kind of a van.
But anyway, we went around all the little mechanic shops and he knew everybody, like honestly everybody, and he just helped us get all the parts, and he spent an entire week on our van just helping fix it. And it was
such generosity, isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah, but there was a moment during that time when I was just like, I was a mess, because I was like, this is so sad. We've got everything that we've been able to. The income we've been able to make from our music is literally all just being spent on our van, and I was like really gutted. but it also felt like, is this going to be too hard? Like, do we just go back to Auckland and get jobs now? Like, like there was that, I had that doubt, and Charles was really strong. He was just like, no, like it's not a big deal. We'll just get it fixed and keep going, kind of thing. I was like, what? But how can you be so? But anyway, it ended up being just one of those points where you're like, nope, we've got to choose to just keep doing this thing, and then we had the album the following year, so it's like it was definitely worth keeping.
And clearly part of your journey was very much you too and the van, wasn't it? I mean, my favourite part of your website, I have to say, is your van jams. So for listeners that want to see what the van is like, go on the website and you can see van jams there, which is Emily and Charles playing your music in this tiny little space. Beautiful, creative, inspirational music. It's stunning. I don't think you've seen it yet, Joe, have you?
We had a quick look before, didn't we?
You need to see it afterwards. So tell us a little bit about your van jams.
So while we were travelling last year, we just thought it would be fun to...
Because we had some songs that hadn't made it onto like any form of EP or anything. So we're like, maybe like once a month we can just record them, try do it in one take. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, and it was really fun. We sometimes sat there practicing it.
So were you actually doing recordings from the van as well?
Yeah,
the whole thing.
So the whole thing's live. It was just us plugged into our little mixer and stuff.
So much fun.
It was really fun. Some days were really hot as well, and it was just like, get me out of this van.
It's strange though, because you see me. Because we went through North Island to the south, and you can see the transition. Like, I'm in a singlet and a lava, and then in the south I'm like in a jersey. Just in a space of those little ranges.
But I think there's about 4 or 5 songs there. If you go to
songs
our website, you'll find them there somewhere.
Songs that we liked and we thought were worth putting out, but they didn't have any relationship to any of the projects. So I was just...
Hey, you guys are so inspirational. We love hearing your stories. We love hearing about your journey. What message would you put out there, say, to teenagers that are listening to you two speak, who haven't got a clue what they want to do and feel pressurised by society, who are constantly saying, what are you going to do when you leave school? What would you say to them?
It's a tricky one, because I come from a experience, I suppose, where the family's opinion is held in high value, to the point where if they have something, if they would like you to do something, but even though you don't want to do it, you'd most likely go do it because that would make your family happy. So in that space, I don't know how you would navigate. I was fortunate to have parents who said, do whatever you want, we've got your back. That's how, and which is why my attitude is the way it is. It's like, we're going to go do that. Yeah, that's sweet as. But I did hear somebody on a TED Talk, and I can't remember her name. She said, your passion is found in your favorite problems to solve.
Wow.
So for me, identity was something, being from up north and knowing that some of the highest stats of suicide are from up there, from our young Māori men, that there's a reason why that hasn't left my heart. And so everything I do, I try to align with that passion, I suppose, with that. And I honestly believe everybody's got something in there that just niggles away and never goes away. Just do it. Or at least get around people who are already in that kind of field, or just have those conversations. Because maybe it's there because you're not sure, and then you go asking like, oh no, okay, sweet, that wheel has been made, maybe there's something else I could do.
A friend of mine just a couple of nights ago said you end up becoming a little bit like the people that you hang out with, like your close people, your family or your best friends. I don't know, I feel
my dad said that. His way of saying it's like, you hang with eagles, you become an eagle. You hang with turkeys, you become a turkey.
Like there's so many different ways to express it. That's a good one.
Hang out with the people that you admire and that you love, whatever they're doing. It's okay if you don't know what it is that you're really excited and passionate about. I had so many friends who, going up through school and youth group, who just didn't know what they wanted to do, and that's totally fine. Like you don't need to know, and you just eventually there'll be something that just catches your eye, or that you just feel like you need to do. But don't worry if you don't know what that is yet. I think just keep searching.
Still, my heart goes out to Mike King's doing a beautiful job with these those people. But my heart goes out to the young people who don't know how to get out, who don't, because they're stuck. It's the I heard it yesterday actually. We were talking about setting up a support system for the teachers we support through this scholarship organisation we mentioned earlier, and the image was given of somebody in a burning building, and we're asking them to come out, but they're stuck in the flames. So the only way we can properly support them is to go into that burning building with them and help them out. And so I'm hoping that in our tours and in our shows, my mind is like boggling with different initiatives or different strategies where we can help. Just say, hey, come experience this. It's not like, because some people say, for me in South Auckland, there's this word of like make it out of the hood, but for me it's like making it in the hood. It's like no, I'm in the hood and I'm from the hood and I can make it in here. And so it's not removing them so much from a situation, but sharing with them other experiences that could lead, it could inspire something else. Because it's important to know where you're from and acknowledge even the difficulties. Just as much as it is to, like, if it's not healthy for you, if it's harmful for you. You
do describe it very beautifully, and I think the message in there, I think all of our young people need a lot of mentors, don't they? And the more people like you can go out there and help them young people, then it just gives them that little bit of seed of inspiration. And sometimes you just need to plant that seed, don't you, for it to grow?
No, that's true. There's heaps of stories I've heard of people planting a seed, not realizing they had, going away and meeting that person 2 years later and realizing it's just completely budded into a full-grown tree. It's very important.
And as you say, with the stories that you hear, sometimes when Sue and I get the same. You get these people come back to you and they say, "Oh, you inspired me because of this," and you don't think you're necessarily being inspirational. You're just being who you are, and you're just doing your stuff because you're following your heart and you're in faith and you're in flow. And when you do that, people are inspired because they see you shine. So I think it's a lovely place to be.
Thank you very much. That's definitely the case.
Well, Charles and Emily, thank you so much for joining us today. We are inspired by you. I need to get a CD player so I can listen to that CD or borrow Joe's, because when you played on that evening at the Justice Conference, your music was absolutely stunning. I love it online, van jams, all of it together. We're going to leave our listeners with a song that you've chosen. Can you tell us what that song is and a little bit about what it's actually about?
Yeah, this is quite ideal actually. So that's cool. Toho. This song is called Toho, and the Toho is the Māori name for the silverite or waxeye.
It's a tiny little bird in Aotearoa with a little silver ring around both of its eyes. It's really, really cute.
Google image.
Google image that.
And but Toho translated from Māori is stranger. And the story apparently with the Toho is that it's originally an Australian bird, and it continued to migrate towards there. But one particular time in space, a storm picked up and blew a lot of them over into Aotearoa. And so the story is about not like sometimes we get caught up in a storm, not realizing where it's taking us. But if we work together, then we can make it home. We can there's something in it if we all just work together. And so kei koneo, which is one of the lyrics in there, is I am here. Yeah.
Oh, that's made me really tearful, actually. It's really touched me, so thank you. That's so beautiful. I love that.
Charles and Emily, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Kei koneo, aho, kei konei aho. The silver eye led me to a stream, told his friends watch over me. He said, let's talk about the way you walk, about what's been happening. Sometimes the wind of the storm takes us somewhere we don't wanna go. If it's paradise on the other side, we don't wanna know. Breathe in, breathe out, yeah. The sun is shining on your face on the other side. I tried to hide my world inside of what's been happening. He said, let's talk about the way you walk. Don't hide at all from me. You never asked for any of this, but here I am. Sometimes the wind of the storm takes us somewhere we don't wanna go. If it's paradise on the other side, we don't wanna know. Breathe in, breathe out, yeah. The sun is shining on your face on the other side. 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 You never asked for any of this, but here I am. You never asked for any of this, but here I am. Sometimes the wind of the storm takes us somewhere we don't wanna go. If it's paradise on the other side, we don't wanna know. Breathe in, breathe out, yeah. The sun is shining on your face on the other side. 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 You never asked for any of this, but here I am. You never asked for any of this, but here we are.
Whoa, how gorgeous was that? What a treat. Please go check out Charles and Emily on arrowmusic.co.nz. All the details of their album is there. Go download their album because it is stunning. Thanks for now. Thanks so much for being with us today. For us to inspire others to live their magnificently imperfect life, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or on your podcast app. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Pods with Posh and Pool. We can't wait for you to join us on our next episode. Love, light and peace.